Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. The new demand from the prosecutor of the so-called Doomsday cult couple. What evidence is now being sought in the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case? Prosecutors seek the death penalty for a suspect indicted in the murder of a woman and the presumed murder of her little boy.
They're still looking for Nilo, but it's pretty clear that he died a miserable death.
The Florida sheriff taking matters into his own hands in the arrest of an accused animal abuser.
If you harm an animal in Brevard County, I'm personally going to walk you into our jail and slam the door in your face.
Plus, the woman sharing her story of alleged sexual assault at a troubled teen ranch.
No child should suffer abuse, and no child should ever be sent to these ranches.
Why she says she was inspired by Paris Hilton. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast.
Husband Chad Daybell are charged with concealing and destroying evidence while Vallow's children were reported missing. Authorities discovered the bodies of JJ and Tylee Ryan buried in shallow graves on Daybell's property. The defense wants to move their trial to another county, saying they won't be able to get an impartial jury in Fremont County. Now, Prosecutor Wood is demanding they hand over a survey that Daybell's attorney says he plans to enter into evidence. The defense reportedly had a survey or poll conducted as proof for why the change of venue is needed. A hearing on the matter is scheduled for March 10th. In the meantime, ABC's 2020 is airing a special on the case this Friday.
They were actively preparing for the end.
So she planned on surviving the end of the world.
Yes.
This is the story.
Chad, Lori, can you tell me where your kids are? Tell us where your kids are. Everybody wants to know.
That stunned a nation.
How does a mother who loved her children do a 180 like that?
It's very bizarre.
Now to Ohio, where a man could be put to death for the murders of his ex-girlfriend and her 3-year-old son. Law and Crime's Angenette Levy is here to tell us about the new indictment and how the little boy is still missing.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. You know, we've been telling you about Nilo Lattimore and his mom since last December. Nilo is still missing, but Cincinnati police and prosecutors say he is dead and that Desean Brown is responsible.
It's a gruesome case. I cannot even imagine what that little boy was going through.
More than 2 months after Nilo Lattimore's mother, Nitisha, was killed and he went missing, the prosecutor announced Desean Brown will face the possibility of the death penalty for their murders.
He knew what he wanted to do for, a couple months and went and did it. Carried it out, ordered a body bag.
Prosecutor Joe Dieters says Desean Brown killed Nitisha Lattimore in her apartment on December 5th. Dieters says these surveillance photos show Brown carrying Nitisha's body out of her apartment building 6 days later in the body bag. Dieters says Brown took an Uber to the Ohio River, telling the driver the large item he was carrying was clothes. Hours later, on December 12th, a security guard found the body bag near a bridge. By that point, Dieters says Nilo had already been killed.
He didn't want Nilo's existence traced back to him after he killed Nilo's mother. So he made a choice.
Dieters says Brown threw Nilo into the Ohio River alive the day after he killed his mother. Nilo's stroller was found in the river the day after Nitisha's body was found. Questions have been raised about filing a murder charge without a body.
You can prove cases without a body.
Dieters points to the murder of Carrie Culberson in 1996. Her body has never been found, but her ex-boyfriend was convicted of killing her. Meanwhile, volunteers have spent countless hours searching the Ohio River and its banks for Nilo's body.
It's been countless hours that they've searched for this baby, and it will continue until we do ultimately find him.
Now, Desean Brown had already pleaded not guilty to Nitisha Lattimore's murder, but he'll be arraigned again on these new charges next week. I contacted his lawyer seeking a comment, and so far, he has not called me back. Brian?
Terry, the way I understand it, the death penalty is on the table because of the death of Nilo or the fact that 2 or more people were murdered. Do you think the prosecution will have trouble getting the death penalty with only half of the victims, though?
You know, Brian, I think it's possible they could get the death penalty. I mean, they do have the body of the mother, and that might just be enough. You know, Ohio is only one of 28 states that actually has the death penalty. Having said that, Governor Mike DeWine has already indefinitely suspended all capital punishments. It's his view that the lethal injection is not a good way to do the death penalty. And he also thinks that the time between the conviction and the actual, capital punishment is too long and it's not a deterrent. So we'll see if it actually happens here.
Now, Dina, in a few moments, once he gets arraigned on the new charges, we will have a double homicide. The homicide of Nilo, though, will almost completely be circumstantial. What arguments could a defense attorney make to avoid that guilty verdict?
I mean, the case against Brown is very strong, but they're going to be able to create some sort of doubt, the fact that there is not a body. But we see convictions all the time when there isn't a body, and that makes sense. We don't want somebody who does commit murder just because they hide a body well to be able to get off on the murder. And there is evidence, such as the fact that there's the child's blood is on the blanket, his stroller is in the river, and the fact that a 3-year-old is not going to go very far. So the fact that he has not been seen for so long, although it's circumstantial, it's a very strong case, and I think that even if there's doubt, there's not going to be reasonable doubt here.
Yeah, I'd agree too. Angenette, the prosecutor, said Brown planned the murder of Nitisha Lattimore for 2 months. Is that how they're pursuing the death penalty?
Yeah, Brian, that's only just a small part of it. That's because in Ohio, premeditation of a crime is not enough to seek the death penalty. There also have to be these aggravating circumstances. The prosecutor said that the aggravating circumstances in this case are the fact that 2 or more people were murdered, and they say they know that Nilo is dead, even though his body hasn't been found. And the fact that Nilo was younger than 13 is the other aggravating factor.
All right, we'll keep eyes on this case. Thank you all for the update. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, Lady Gaga's dog walker shot and her dog stolen. The reward she's offering for information in the case. But first, prosecutors wrap up their case in the Welcome back. The state has rested in the no-body murder trial of a man accused of killing his wife in Wisconsin. James Prokopovitz is charged with first-degree intentional homicide of Victoria Prokopovitz. She's been missing since 2013, and her body has never been found. Investigators say it was part of the defendant's plan to be with his new girlfriend, Catherine Friday. Friday and the defendant were charged with lying about when they met, but Friday died before her sentencing. In 2016, the defendant spoke with a private investigator hired by the victim's family who accused him of killing his wife.
Yeah, I know you don't, but say God forbid something would happen to your wife. Would you be able to tell everybody what she had on or what she wore? If you guys think I did something, God damn it, arrest me and haul me in. Because I didn't. I never asked that. He said I did. Well, at that interview. Right to me. I know you did something to that woman. I'm talking now. Well, then maybe. That's why he hasn't said a word. He hasn't said a word. Because sometimes you get angry like this. I don't feel safe. So I asked him. I don't get angry very often, but this is getting to be. What's ridiculous? I just asked you to. We're trying to help you. I know you're trying to help me remember. But 3.5 years ago. Then tell me you don't remember. I don't remember. Perfect. I'll move on to the next thing. Where I was sitting when we sat down. But you remember that it was here and that was here.
Prosecutors contend that the defendant disposed of the victim's body in a sludge pond, but the defense asked the lead investigator if he ever found evidence of that.
I want to be clear that it had nothing to do with the cold. I personally remember drilling holes in the ice and diving underneath them to look for Victoria Prokopovitz. We also were hopeful that, primarily because of statements made by Mr. Prokopovitz, that during hunting season there would be more eyes and boots on the ground.
And at least up through November of 2013, so far your efforts didn't fetter out any information of the whereabouts of Victoria Prokopovitz, true?
Correct, no information relating to her whereabouts.
Here to break down the no-body murder trial in Wisconsin is legal analyst Dina Dahl and Terry Austin. Terry, based on your impression of this witness so far, do you think the investigator helped the prosecution establish their case?
I do. I think this was a very strong witness for the prosecution. He was able to establish the fact that they had done exhaustive searches. You heard him there talk about going under the water. He also was able to establish that the defendant wasn't at all interested in helping the authorities. And he basically said he was cold-hearted, he was controlling, he was lying, and even abusive. The real question here, Brian, is whether or not all of that is enough to return a guilty verdict, because frankly, at the end of the day, just because he's not a nice person doesn't mean he killed his wife.
Exactly. Dina, the defendant, James Prokopovitz, is not testifying, but I'm calling it now. I think it's going to be a hung jury. You've been following most of this case. What do you think?
You know, I said that yesterday because I think people have very strong opinions about this case. So I either could see that or a conviction. You know, there's a lot of facts against him. The domestic violence, repeatedly lying to authorities, you know, his obsession with this woman that he has an affair with shortly after. The only reasonable doubt that the defense is creating is that maybe she killed herself because of her history with depression, but there's zero evidence of her leaving her home, no evidence of her footsteps or anything. So to me, this case seems very much in the prosecution's favor, but different people will think differently about the idea of, you know, the depression angle that the defense is bringing up.
And she did say, and I think it did come out, that if she did commit suicide, they'd never find her body. It's doubt. The question is it reasonable? Thank you both. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, how investigators believe hackers attempted to break into a water treatment plant's computer system. Plus, the sheriff slamming jail doors on a suspect charged with starving 2 dogs to death. His personal message to the defendant next. We're back. A Florida sheriff is sending a strong message to animal abusers that he will personally walk them into jail.
Not only is this person responsible for the death of 2 innocent animals, he literally starved them to death over a period of several weeks. After the dogs were found dead, a necropsy revealed chips of wood from furniture, plastic bottles, Band-Aids, even a plastic bag in the stomach of these poor innocent dogs. These poor animals were literally eating furniture and their own feces, trying desperately to stay alive. So, David Fritsch, this is what you wanted. You wanted to go to jail, apparently. You couldn't take the responsibility to take care of an animal, so I'm going to walk you into jail. I guess you didn't get the memo about don't hurt animals.
You don't have all the facts there, but...
No, I believe I do have the facts. There's 2 dogs dead that you were responsible for.
Yeah.
So...
But you don't understand the situation.
Well, I don't need to. Our investigators did a great job putting you behind bars. Like I said, don't hurt an animal in Brevard County.
Lady Gaga is offering a $500,000 reward for information leading to the return of her 2 pooches after her dog walker was shot. Police in Los Angeles say the victim was walking the dogs at 9:40 p.m. Wednesday night. The suspect shot him and stole the 2 French bulldogs, Koji and Gustave. Her 3rd dog reportedly was able to get away. The LAPD says the shooters used a semi-automatic gun and fled the scene in a white vehicle. According to TMZ, her dog walker, Ryan Fisher, is recovering from his injuries. A Florida water treatment plant was unsuccessfully targeted by hackers. The FBI is now saying the plant had outdated computer software. Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross looks into what the hackers might have been after.
Thanks, Brian. Coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates, troubling questions about the safety and the security of our water and power supply. We all saw what happened in Texas, but also troubling, a development in Florida where officials discovered somebody hacked into the water district computers and tried to poison the water.
The hacker changed the sodium hydroxide from about 100 parts per million to 11,100 parts per million. This is obviously a significant and potentially dangerous increase. Sodium hydroxide, also known as lye, is the main ingredient in liquid drain cleaners.
Chlorine gas, you might recall from history, is what was used in World War I by the Germans and the British to kill each other. It was a chemical weapon. And so if somehow you can get into the controls of a local water system and open the valves of the chlorine gas and let that cloud float out into the community, you have a lethal situation.
That's coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates on the Law and Crime Trial Network. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. When we come back, A young woman's warning about the troubled teen industry. Her calls for reform inspired by Paris Hilton. The lawsuit you need to hear after the break. Welcome back. A young woman is coming forward with sexual assault allegations she says she experienced at a teen rehab center associated with the Dr. Phil show, and says a celebrity inspired her to do so. Paris Hilton testified in front of the Utah Senate just weeks ago about her personal allegations of abuse at a troubled teen camp. Hilton is advocating for more regulation in the industry. Hannah Archuleta says the testimony inspired her to report abuse at another camp when she was 17 years old. Archuleta says she was carted away to Turnabout Ranch in Utah in 2019 after appearing on the Dr. Phil show. She claims a male staffer assaulted her twice, and others threatened her if she spoke up.
I had recently learned that my mother was terminally ill with liver failure. I was vulnerable and heartbroken. At the ranch, I was alone and isolated from all of my family. Within the first 2 weeks at Turnabout Ranch, a male staff member came up behind me and suddenly grabbed my butt. I decided not to tell anyone because I was scared of being punished, and I hoped that he would not touch me again. Sadly, I was wrong. Later, while I was reaching up into a cabinet, the same male staff grabbed my butt and touched my vaginal area. I was required to spend extra time picking up horse manure, walking in circles around a horse corral, and sitting at a desk facing a wall for hours. I had to do forced labor outside in below freezing temperatures and sleep on a wooden plank with no pillow. In addition, the retaliation included refusing me access to the bathroom and denigrating and humiliating me in front of others. When I was finally able to contact my parents and tell them what happened, my parents rescued me from the program on December 19th.
Hannah's father said he tried to report the abuse to local law enforcement, but was ignored.
I spoke with a woman who had provided me with the case number, and she said the original investigating officer was no longer employed there, and that he passed the case down to his son, who is also a Garfield County deputy. I then left a message to please contact me. But after that, I was never contacted by anyone from Garfield County Sheriff's Office by phone or writing, directly or indirectly. I personally feel they swept us under the rug without even bothering to interview Hannah as a victim.
Famed women's rights attorney Gloria Allred is representing Archuleta in her lawsuit. They support Paris Hilton's call for reform.
To make matters worse, the male staff member that she accused was permitted to remain on the job, and the lawsuit alleges that females who were minors at the school were not warned about him and the danger that Hannah believed that he presented. Our lawsuit also alleges that the ranch failed to inform law enforcement officials that Hannah, a 17-year-old minor, had reported that she had been assaulted by a male staff member. We think it is long overdue for Turnabout Ranch to be held accountable for what happened to Hannah when she was there. For this reason, we filed her lawsuit today alleging negligent hiring and supervision, assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We are seeking compensatory and punitive damages according to proof at trial.
Here to discuss allegations of sexual assault on the Turnabout Ranch is Terry Austin and Dina Dahl. Some describe it as a wilderness therapy and residential treatment center, but to this woman who's accusing the staff member of sexually assaulting her not once, but twice, and then the ranch supposedly sweeping it on the rug, this could be a long road to justice. Dina, what should we expect in this case now that the lawsuit has been filed?
You know, two main points. This is a negligence civil case, not a criminal case. So the standard of proof that she needs to prove here is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It is preponderance of the evidence. So it is a lesser standard and easier for her to prove than if she were in court. It'll be more difficult because, you know, here she had Gloria Allred. A lot of people in this situation may not have a lawyer and depend on the criminal justice system. The second point is that the defense, the first thing they're going to want to do is get the intentional infliction of emotional distress dismissed, because that comes with the punitive damages, and that's something that they're going to want to avoid. So those are things to look out for in this case.
Now, Terry, if true, who's on the hook for this sexual assault? The staff member, his supervisor, the whole camp? The list goes on, right?
Exactly. Conceptually, everyone could be on the hook. You heard Gloria Allred there talking about the fact that it's negligent hiring, negligent supervision. So clearly the individual who actually committed the offense is on the hook, but the supervisor, the whole school, and even if I should, look at this and look at it in totality, the police, because you heard the father there say that it was reported to the police as well. So I think they all are on the hook.
All right, Dina and Terry, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.